Across our world we live, in cities and villages, all part of a greater whole, but we're not alone. They come in herds, hives and swarms, packs, prides and pairs, living in nature, members of society.
Whether it be in forests and jungles, rocky mountains or barren tundra, ungulates have spread throughout the known world. Ungulates being a broad term for a diverse clade of hooved animals. They are divided into odd-toed ungulates, such as horses and rhinos, and even-toed ungulates, such as deer, camel, and cattle, all coming in any shape and size, ranging from the largest, the hippopotamus, weighing 10,000 pounds, to the smallest, the rare lesser mouse deer or conchil of Asia, weighing less than 4 pounds. Divided into 13 families with over 300 species, it is one of the most diverse groups of commonly found animals. True deer being among the most recognizable and widespread of all, including reindeer, also known as caribou, white-tailed deer, mule deer, red deer, fallow deer, roe deer, the elk, and the moose. Spread out across the Americas, Europe, Asia, and parts of Africa, with most species being found in Asia. They can be found inhabiting any kind of terrain, from tropical forests to open grasslands, even barren tundra, most living within the transitional area between leafy green forests and savannas, as they are herbivores, primarily feeding on a variety of grass, weeds, and herbs. They range in size from the largest, the moose, at up to 6.9 feet high, weighing up to 1,400 pounds, to the smallest, the poodoo, at mere 13 inches in height, weighing only 26 pounds. All have compact bodies with long, powerful legs to easily traverse rugged forest terrain. They are primarily distinguished by their antlers, which all adult males exhibit, except for the Chinese water deer, having tusks instead. Males being known varyingly as bulls, bucks, or stags. While the female, known as a cow or a doe, usually only has a small stub, except for reindeer females who also grow antlers, albeit smaller than the males. Deer are distinct from their relatives, the antelope, in that they shed their antlers seasonally, as they are used primarily for mating display purposes and combat. The antlers initially grow as soft spongy tissue covered in a kind of skin known as velvet, before hardening into bone, the deer shedding the velvet shortly before mating season. The length and branching of the antlers being determined by age, nutrition, and genetics. Larger antlers generally being favored. While most are sedentary, staying in fixed home ranges, others such as the reindeer can migrate vast distances seasonally in search for food and to prepare for mating season. Though the exact social structure of deer may vary greatly, most are highly social, found in large to medium-sized herds, usually being single-sex groups for most of the year. Males and females meeting only for mating season, with only a few such as the moose being solitary. Communication between deer as such vary somewhat between species depending on their social structure. Most use a variety of vocalizations, commonly including loud calls and wails as with larger species such as the elk, which is known as bugling, able to be heard for miles around, as well as grunts to call out other deer, snorts to indicate danger, and a combination of wheezing, grunting, and snorting as a sign of dominance or as a challenge to another bull or buck. With the younger deer, also known varyingly as a calf, fawn, or kid, often having a high-pitched cry known as a bleat, to call the attention of its mother. Body language is also a significant mean of communication among deer, such as with the white-tailed deer raising their short tail to display the white fur underneath when alarmed to warn others in the area, or by stomping the ground with their hooves, as with males trying to deter predators and encroaching herds coming into their territory. Additional extensive communication occurring through the use of pheromones marking their home ranges and signaling sexual maturity. Mainly using strong scent markings from glands located on the head and between the antlers, the hind legs, the hooves, and through urination. Male deer particularly often found rubbing and scraping against trees and the ground itself to attract females or mark their territory. Also excreted from a gland directly in front of each eye. Mating season typically occurs once a year, in spring or early summer, when the females enters their fertile period in what is known as a rut. This period can last anywhere between 3 months to 1 or 2 days, depending on the species. Mainly polygynous, male deer will attempt to mate with as many female deer as possible, both using a cohesion call to locate a mate, with males often courting and competing for a group of females, known as a harem, through combat with other males. The curves of the antlers enabling the males to lock horns, relying on the strength of their neck to push the other male back as a sign of defeat. Though it is rarely fatal, many males attain painful injuries such as broken antlers as a result. During the rut, the males will also often lose a significant amount of weight as they commonly don't eat for the duration, focusing all of their attention on the females. Older females typically enter estrus first, leading the rut to some species to be divided into phases, where the largest male will mate with the older females first, with the younger males able to mate with the younger females over the following weeks as the large male rests. The males then depart to their own ranges while the female is left alone to care for her fawn, giving birth to 1 or 2 fawns at a time, following a gestation period of up to 10 months. Leading to a well-developed young, able to take its first steps within a day of being born. Though it remains hidden for the first week of its life, being too weak to outrun predators. The female will often leave it for short periods of time to graze, but the fawn typically remains near for the first year. Male fawns are then leaving to find a herd or range of its own, while females may sometimes remain or return to its mother to become part of its herd, often after giving birth to a fawn of their own. Both adults and fawns alike are frequently targets for large predators or pack hunters, such as wolves, tigers, and wild dogs, often targeting the fawn and attempting to separate it from its mother. Because of this, life expectancy of fawns and juvenile deer is often fairly low, protected only by the size of the herd. Many herds keeping the fawn near the center of their territory to be able to warn them in time when a predator is detected. The average lifespan of most deer is around 6 to 15 years, with larger species such as moose and elk lasting until 25 years of age. As due to their size, they are seldom targeted by predators and may be able to vigilantly scare them off once they reach adulthood, using their antlers to charge at any nearby threat. Goats. A widespread group of 9 species of bovids, itself a group of ungulates, closely related to antelopes, sheep, and the muskox, including the wild goat, the markhor, the tur, and several species of ibex. Spread throughout parts of Europe, the Middle East, Central Asia, and North Africa, as well as the unrelated mountain goat of the United States and Canada. The domestic goat itself being a subspecies of wild goats who have at times returned to the wild in the form of feral goats, varying in size between 1 to 5 feet tall at the shoulder, weighing anywhere between 60 to 300 pounds. Distinguished by their short, thick body, powerful limbs terminating in broad hooves, and permanent horns of varying shape and size found on both genders. Though the horns of males tend to be substantially larger, up to 5 feet long for some species, used both for territorial defense and mate selection. As most have clearly defined home ranges, primarily in mountainous regions, in mountain forests or subalpine grasslands, as well as more barren rocky cliffsides. Despite often appearing to move slowly and deliberately, goats are uniquely adapted to their environment with a tremendous sense of balance, as well as having a superior ability to jump or leap between edges. capable of standing leaps up to 6 feet high. Their coat being often light and either yellow, brown, gray, or white to blend in with their surroundings, with varying seasonal coats in colder climates. Exclusively herbivores, they spend most of their time grazing, their diet including grasses, herbs, mosses, twigs, and leaves from low-growing shrubs. Though primarily diurnal, during summer many goats will nonetheless rest during much of the day, grazing well into the night and continuing during early morning. They come in large to medium-sized herds, loosely held together without any sense of hierarchy, instead used primarily to seek safety in numbers from predators. As they are frequently targeted by wolves, mountainous cats, and large raptors such as eagles. With many goats seeking shelter and establishing their home ranges in high-altitude mountain peaks to escape danger, often found at altitudes well above 2,000 feet, where few other animals reside, most goats being easily disturbed and wary of all other animals as a result. Though herds can for some species come in numbers of up to 500 individuals, most number far fewer, between 5 to 30, divided by gender for most of the year until the rut. Male herds often being more widely dispersed and taking the form of several smaller subgroups found at higher altitudes than the females. Older, more mature males tending to be more solitary, remaining at the periphery of the main herd's territory. When in mixed male-female herds during the rut, the older males will often stay on the fringes of the main group, forming an outer line of defense and advance warning. Communication between goats consisting mainly of varying bleats and brays and calls, either to signal danger, for socialization, or to challenge another goat. Body language being particularly significant, especially among males, charging stances and stomping or scraping of their hooves, used to challenge other males or to defend their territory from another encroaching herd. Also using scent markings on tree trunks and branches, excreting pheromones from their urine and hooves to signal the borders of the territory and sexual maturity, as well as by debarking trees by scraping their horns against them. Mating season, or rut, typically occurs once a year, in the late fall or winter for most species, lasting between 2 to 4 months. Male herds joining nearby female herds to form a larger mixed group for the duration of the rut. Goats are both polyandrous and polygynous, both males and females mating with several mates during the rut, though the males will occasionally try to prevent other males from mating with the same female. Males, or billies, initiate courtship by seeking out a female herd, staring the females down, attempting to impress them with the size of their horns, digging what is known as rutting pits in the ground with their hooves where the mating will later take place, as well as engaging in combat among themselves. Highly ritualized, billy goats will challenge each other by calls and staring, facing each other at near distance, often standing upright or rearing before charging and clashing their horns and locking them together, attempting to wrestle the other goat into submission. The skull and neck of goats able to lock up to form a straight line, absorbing the immense impact which would otherwise be fatal, the neck being particularly thick and muscular among males as a result. Though primarily used as a show of physical prowess and dominance, goats can nonetheless sustain significant injuries from combat. Further exasperated as they often forego eating during this time to focus all of their attention on females. Mating itself is then quick and repeated. After mating, the males typically leave, having no part in raising their young, either reforming their own herd or scattering into small bands of a few isolated individuals, while the females, also known as does or nannies, will form loose-knit nursery groups of other pregnant females as a subgroup to a larger herd of females. The gestation period then lasts for 5 to 6 months for most species, giving birth to a single well-developed young, though twins are not uncommon, able to stand and walk within hours after birth, weighing as little as 5 to 9 pounds at birth. The young, also known as a kid, grows rapidly during their first year, doubling their weight within months, the horns being visible already after 3 to 4 weeks, eating grass already within the first 2 weeks, though they are only weaned fully at 6 months of age. The mortality rate of kids being relatively high due to predation by wolves, foxes and lynxes, though they are often protected at the center of the herd and remain at high altitudes to avoid most lowland predators, instead staying close to their mother and the herd at large until reaching maturity between 18 months to 3 years of age, though they only reach adult size between 4 to 6 years for females, up to 9 to 10 years for males. Juvenile goats commonly being unable to attract a mate until nearing their full size. The lifespan of goats is limited mainly by the wearing down of their teeth rather than explicit aging, as their teeth are permanent and do not regenerate. Older goats are eventually unable to chew tougher twigs and shrubs and succumb to starvation or disease, most living between 10 to 20 years. The rhinoceros. One of the most recognizable animals in the world. They exist across Central and Southern Africa and parts of India and Southeast Asia. Divided into 5 species, the white rhino and the black rhino of Africa, as well as the Indian rhino, the Sumatran rhino, and the Javan rhino found in Asia, all found in habitats as diverse as dense rainforests, swamps, and cloud forests, to open plains and savannas, depending on the species. All distinguished for their thick skin, which can be up to 2 inches at its thickest point, often either bare or covered in thin reddish-brown hair and featuring regular folds to help regulate body temperature through increased surface area, and their horns. Having 1 or 2 large horns on the front tip of their skull, used for defensive and display purposes, males often being highly aggressive, charging against any perceived threat. Rhinos also being notable for their large size, being the largest of all ungulates after only the hippopotamus, ranging in size from the smallest, the Sumatran rhino at 7 feet in length and weighing 1,500 pounds, to the largest, the white rhino at 15 feet in length and weighing up to 5,000 pounds. They evolved nearly 50 million years ago from horse-like ancestors before taking on their well-known appearance of today. Exclusively herbivorous, they primarily eat leaves and grass, but may also digest roots, shoots, and bark if necessary, augmenting their diet with salt licks or naturally occurring mineral deposits of salt, such as hot springs, salt water, or mud volcanoes. Places which are additionally important social gathering sites where males can pick up the scent of fertile females, also using the site. Being primarily crepuscular, rhinos will feed at dawn and near dusk when the temperature drops, wallowing in mud baths, much like elephants, to keep cool during the day and protecting its skin from parasites. Many species also regularly taking baths in nearby rivers or lakes, with the folds of their skin retaining the water when on land. Most rhinos are primarily solitary, living largely alone with loosely defined home ranges or territories, sometimes varying seasonally. Though they are normally not defensive of their home range, having been known to let other rhinos pass through or stay temporarily within its bounds. Males having larger territories than females, also resulting in regularly occurring overlaps. Marking their territory by scraping their feet against the ground, twisting, bending, or destroying vegetation in particular patterns, and leaving excrement and urinary markings along the borders and within the main area of the territory. Only white rhinos are occasionally found in smaller herds or crashes of 5 to 6 females, many being young and small, converging for protection. Rhinos have typically very poor eyesight, instead relying on the sense of smell and hearing to detect other rhinos or animals in its vicinity. Many species known to constantly communicate, relying on a variety of vocalizations, including snorting, honks, and grunts during courtship, squeals, shrieks, and bleats when distressed, and deep bellows or growls when threatened, as well as a whale-like song of sustained notes and whistle blows, the exact purposes of which remain unknown. The whistle blow being the loudest, a high-pitched whistling sound lasting a couple of seconds before immediately followed by a burst of forced exhalation, heard for great distances. Other forms of communication include body language, such as bobbing their heads as a form of greeting, nuzzling noses, and licking to show non-aggressive intent. and play fighting or sparring for social bonding. Adult rhinos typically only converge in smaller groups temporarily around salt licks, water holes, or mud wallows. Mating season is often not fixed, but occurs whenever the female is in estrus and ready to take on a calf, leaving scent markings and dung piles to indicate their readiness. Some species only being fertile for a single day, though estrus will occur monthly, forming monogamous pairs for a period of a few days to several weeks before moving on. Mating is often initialized by the male, including courtship period of raising their tail, increased vocalizations, urinary markings, and increased physical contact. Though young males of some species have been known to be excessively aggressive, sometimes injuring or even killing the female during courtship. African rhinos may also compete for females with sparring using their horns, aggressively charging and clashing their horns together, often sustaining significant injuries before admitting defeat. Mating itself is brief and repeated until conception occurs, the male staying with the female for a brief period of time to ensure that she is no longer in estrus before leaving to its own range. The gestation period of most rhinos is very long, lasting 15 to 16 months, leading to a highly developed offspring. Weighing between 80 to 140 pounds and able to walk within days after birth. Sticking close to its mother, the calf is weaned only at around 2 years of age, remaining by its mother for an additional 1 to 2 years after that. Though large predators such as tigers and lions may attempt to target vulnerable calves, they are often fiercely protected by their mother. Sometimes the mother will give birth to another calf during this period, at which point the older calf will assist in protecting their younger sibling, or be chased off by its mother to try to make it on its own. Independent subadult individuals of both genders then often form small groups of 2 to 3 individuals, forming on the edge of the territory of a nearby dominant male. As they are not large enough to be protected from predators by their sheer size, they seek protection in numbers. Once fully adult, the rhinos will migrate to find territory of their own. Females typically reach sexual maturity within 4 to 7 years, with males taking longer, up to 10 to 12 years for some species. As they lack any natural predators, the main threat to an adult rhino is often another rhino challenging them to combat. With African rhinos particularly prone to violent confrontations, 50% of all male black rhinos dying of combat-related injuries. The average life expectancy being between 35 to 50 years. Rhinos, just like goats and deer, along with all other ungulates across our world, form an essential component in our ecosystem, both as grazers and seeders, and themselves as prey, whether they are in large herds, smaller groups, or all alone. They are all crucial parts of our ecology, all members of an animal society.